Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Facebook Live. Um, Today, I know people might be listening to this later, but today it is October 14th, and we have just come off our first blizzard here in Fargo. And I know Western North Dakota got this a lot worse than we did. We've already begun melting, and most of it's gone. But that was kind of an unexpected respite that some of us got a chance to take over the weekend. I know there was at least one school in our area that was closed on Friday. So, hey, early season blizzard, that can do kind of amazing things to us. So today, I want to talk about intention. And not intention like, oh man, I intended to do that. Like I had good intentions. Not that kind of intention. Today I want to talk about intention as told by Wayne Dyer in this book right here called The Power of Intention, Learning to Co-Create Your World Your Way. And as I'm thinking about this, as it relates to business, because as you probably know, I'm a coach, consultant, trainer, speaker, author, and I work with a lot of teams. And in fact, I just worked with a team this morning, which was a blast. Thank you for the opportunity to do that. And as it relates to business, I think sometimes it's easy to get stuck in the transactional way of being in business where we have to make it happen. We have to make money and make sure that we get things done. And it's a lot of making, a lot of forcing. I go like this because it's a lot of this kind of activity and energy, make things happen. And I believe there's another way to think about this. I'm not sure how to measure it, which has been my challenge my whole career, is measuring things that you can't touch, but you can sure feel. And I believe intention is one of those kinds of things. So Wayne Dyer has been a mentor of mine for many years. I did get a chance to meet him in person several years ago. Here we are, back in probably 2008, maybe. And he shifted everything about how I was being when I met him. Suffice it to say, there's way more that I could talk about there. But what he allowed me to think about then, thank you for the hearts on that. What he allowed me to think about then, which maybe I wasn't actually doing, was to consider that there's another way to do business than just the have to and the should and the push and the make. And he started talking about spiritual concepts as it related to business in a way that I'd never considered. And I know my whole life I have spent time trying to fit into other people's perception of what business should look like. And I was telling the group that I was working with this morning that the way I did that for most of my career was to shave off the square corners that made me to fit into other people's round holes. And try as I might, those darn square corners kept growing back. And I would try again, and I'd try again, and I kept trying to fit because I kept trying to do things the way I thought they needed to be done. And for me, it just didn't work. It didn't work in the way that I wanted it to work. I use that term too. What if there's no right and wrong? There's just what works and what doesn't based on what your intentions are. And so that's what I want to talk about today with Wayne Dyer. So this book puts a spiritual dimension to things that are traditionally business related. So let me just tell you a little bit about this and how it works with me. And please, if you will, put comments in. I know at some point I need to see your comments, and I am not sure how to do that today because you're not showing up. And I know there are several of you here. So if you have a comment or something that you'd like to share, please do that, and I will figure out how to make sure I can see them. So Wayne Dyer, let me just share from this book. This may feel a little woo-woo to you, and keep in mind that I'm a little sensitive to woo-woo because I've told you many times. My last boss was the guy who told me, Jody, what you do is touchy-feely crap that makes me puke. I really need to let that go, don't you suppose? Yet it's really allowed me to step into my own greatness in a way that I probably never could have had he not said that. So that's my story. the way Wayne Dyer describes intention is it's a strong purpose or aim accompanied by a determination to produce a desired result. So doesn't that sound like goal setting or results-driven business? It could. He says people driven by intention are described as having a strong will that won't permit anything to interfere with achieving their inner desire. I imagine a sort of pit bull kind of resolve or determination. So that's how people have thought of the word intention. It's determined by your will, your pit bull ability. He said he used to think that's what intention was. And that's what I used to believe it was. You have to do things in a certain way. But he said he's had a shift. And again, this is written in, let me look at what year. I believe it's 2004. Yeah, 2004. He had a shift from that way of seeing intention as a pit bull determination to a spiritual orientation where healing, creating miracles, manifesting, and making a connection to divine intelligence are genuine possibilities. Hang with me, hang with me. I know this sounds a little woo-woo to those of us who were raised in that, dog-eat-dog world. Yet what if that were a possibility? What if we could actually intend through the power of intention our lives to happen for us? So he says, this hasn't been a deliberate attempt to disengage from his academic and professional background, because that's where he was in the other way of seeing intention. A strong purpose or aim accompanied by a determination to produce a desired result. Again, many of us have been there. He said, as he began to make more conscious connection and contact with spirit, his writing began to shift. And his writing started emphasizing a belief that we can find spiritual solutions to problems by living at higher levels and calling upon faster energies. That's science, right? Faster energies. It's a higher vibrational energy. He said, in my mind, intention is now something much greater than a determined ego or an individual will. So just consider that possibility that there might be another way of achieving what we traditionally would call goals. Goals and quotas, maybe things that we have to do. We have to make money so we can pay our mortgage. There's some realities in the world. Yet, could there be another way of achieving that goal other than pushing, making, forcing? So he said that his aha came when he read Carlos Castaneda. Carlos Castaneda, I should know that, how to pronounce that, and I don't. But he said, Castaneda's words were, intent is a force that exists in the universe. When sorcerers, now again, don't get freaked out by that, sorcerers, he says sorcerers are simply those who live of the source. When sorcerers beckon intent, it comes to them and sets up the path for attainment, which means that sorcerers always accomplish what they set out to do. Now, when I think about that, I'm a little triggered by that word sorcerer, and let me be honest with you, because I was raised in a traditional Christian life where that's not of source. Sorcerers are of the other place. And I have to get over that, or I've had to work to get over that, because my conditioning has prevented me from seeing that. But what if? What if there's a way? What if that's possible? He says, imagine that intention is not something you do, but rather a force that exists in the universe as an invisible field of energy. What if that's possible out there? And now, what if that source of energy is actually waiting for me to connect with it so that I can't help but achieve whatever those goals are? That's a completely different way of thinking about goal setting, for me at least. And for me, that feels way better than the making and forcing and having to. So Wayne says in the book, he had experienced Satori, which, if you've heard me talk before, I've used that term a lot. Satori is instant awakening. And he had that aha. Have you ever had that aha where something just clicks and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I ever didn't know this. So if that's what happened to him, and he realized that intention has a power that pulls us toward what we desire instead of forces us to do the things that we have to do so that we can then deserve to have that outcome. What if it's different? What? I love that. He says there is what some call a future pull in the DNA that's present at conception. That's what he calls intention. He says, I know that intention is a force that we all have within us. Intention is a field of energy that flows invisibly beyond the reach of our normal, everyday, habitual patterns. So we're probably all stuck in some sort of habitual pattern. I mean, even if you consider something as easy as brushing your teeth, it's a habitual pattern. We don't even really think about it anymore. We just do it when we get up in the morning. I just make my bed every morning when I get up. I don't even think about it anymore. It's a habitual pattern. Yet, what if there are habitual patterns that we're stuck in that we don't even know about that are keeping us from tapping into this source that Wayne Dyer calls intention, this field of intention? What am I doing and being every day that's preventing me from getting into that flow of intention? And it could be things I don't even know. They're subconscious. They're below consciousness. I don't know I'm doing them. And I think that is where the challenge is for us, because if we don't know better, we can't do better. But another challenge is if we know better and don't do better, what does that say to us? It's as if we don't know. If we know better and don't do better, it's as if we don't know. So now that I've got this, and by the way, I read this book in 2004. I'm a fan of his. Here we are. Oh, that was amazing. I've read this book before. I have it highlighted. I can show you the highlights in it. So it's not like I don't know this stuff. I mean, I've read this before. But knowing and not doing is as if I don't know. So are any of you out there with me? I know I can't see your comments right now. I'm sorry. I don't know why I can't see your comments. If you're with me on that or you've done that, just give me some hearts. I can actually see hearts and likes right now. So if you're in that space where you know something but you're not doing it, it could be because you don't have a supportive group around you. Maybe it's because this sounds a little wacky to some people, this idea of intention and spirit and woo-woo stuff, and how could you possibly talk about this stuff while you're making your widgets or while you're selling your program or whatever you're doing. I get it. I struggle with this too. Thanks for those hearts. It doesn't have to be that way, you guys. What are we doing to surround ourselves with people with whom we can have this conversation? Because there probably won't be as many of us. It might still be a little bit cutting edge. Although Carlos Castaneda was not, he's an old guy. I mean, he's been dead for many years. Patanjali, who was the father of yoga, I mean, that was 2,000 years ago. And Patanjali is someone who had a really big impact on Wayne Dyer, who then had a really big impact on me. He said, and by the way, it was more than 20 centuries ago, Patanjali said, dormant forces, faculties, and talents come alive when you're inspired by a greater purpose. Dormant forces, faculties, and talents come alive, and you discover yourself to be a greater person by far than you ever dreamed yourself to be. What if we're on the brink of this in our businesses, wherever our businesses are, online, in person? What if we're on the brink of this? And the fact that we just don't have people to help us with that future pull is holding us back. What if we know something here, and it's making its way from our head to our heart and maybe to our gut? What if we know that, and that's what's creating our restlessness and discontent in the way we've been doing things, and we don't have the guts to talk about this? What if there are so many of us out there who are having this same restless and discontent feeling, but we don't know it? We don't know we're together in this. What if we could have these kinds of conversations that are about, yeah, okay, touchy-feely woo-woo stuff, but not new, certainly not new. There have been people having these conversations forever about future pull DNA that's inside of us when we're born. I mean, golly, you guys, what if the source, Wayne Dyer says, the source, which is intention, is pure, unbounded energy vibrating so fast that it defies measurement and observation. It's invisible, without form or boundaries. So at our source, thank you for those likes, you guys. This is big. I know. Let's do this together. So at our source, we are formless energy, and in that formless, vibrating, spiritual field of energy, intention resides. And that's the power of intention. Huh. Like I said, I've known this forever, but I haven't had the guts to talk about it. I think this is what's missing in corporate America. And I'm just going to say that, corporate America, because anything that is of a corporation, anything that's traditional business, has a structure to it. And I've said this before, structure, there's nothing wrong with structure. I love structure. I just don't love creating structure personally, but I love structure because we need structure. Without structure, things would fall down. We need structural integrity. You know, I have friends and clients who are architects and engineers. Thank you, because we need structural integrity. Yet if all we have is the structure, all we have is the bones in our bodies, the corpus, we will not live very long, because we need heart and soul and spirit to actually live inside those structures. And I think what happens, maybe this is just my story, but inside corporate structures, when I've tried so desperately to fit in by shaving off my square corners, I thought I was wrong. I thought wanting to bring my whole self to work and be able to share who I was and what I was up to and help other people do the same thing, I thought that's just what you did, until I realized time after time after time, like the whack-a-mole getting whacked, I stopped. I believed then that I was wrong. I believed for a long time that having these ideas about infusing heart and soul and spirit into the structure of corporate America was, I thought it was right, but I learned it wasn't, because it wasn't welcomed. And I think it's because we're afraid. We're just afraid to do it. We're afraid of what I was afraid of for so long. People calling me crazy. People saying what I did was touchy-feely crap. People not paying me to do this. People want this, you guys. People crave this. They crave connection to things that makes us human, whether that's individual leaders within organizations or whether it's a structure of an organization that realizes the heart and soul and spirit is missing when we spend so much time on the structure. We want to make sure our systems are good and everything works properly. We want to make sure that our structural integrity is sound. Well, of course. But if we think that's where it ends, with the structural integrity, and then we wonder why people are leaving or people aren't happy or why they don't pay me enough to work here, it's not about the money. It's not about the money at that point, because there are other things missing. People will walk across the street for $1 more an hour if they feel that they're not being appreciated, listened to, heard, all of those things that are traditionally touchy-feely. People will leave you for more money. They don't leave the job. They like doing their jobs typically, but they're going to leave the person who has them feel limited. I think the statistics show that 80% of people who leave a job don't leave the job. They leave their immediate supervisor. They leave the leader who doesn't know how to support them in this touchy-feely crap. That's why it's so important to learn it. It's so important to have the conversations I had the privilege of having with the team I was working with this morning, where we could talk about this, where the leader who hired me to come in and work with the team was gutsy enough to be able to say, I maybe don't know exactly where this is going to go, but I trust that something needs to be infused. And that's where I'm getting braver about sharing what it is I do. In organizations without the heart and soul and spirit, you guys, it's not going to last very long. You'll have the structure standing there, but it'll be an empty building. And then there will be all these amazing people who are in a little shack, loving on each other, doing things that change the world for the better, It's not about the shack. It's about the heart, soul, and spirit. So I kind of think the heart and soul and spirit can survive without the structure easier than the structure will survive over time without the heart, soul, and spirit. So what if that were possible? I'm not even saying it's probable. I'm just saying possible. What kind of conversations could we be having in that way? And you guys, I know that you are giving comments, and I'm so sorry that for some reason I can't see them right now. So I will look forward to reading them later. If anybody knows, well, actually, you would probably know what I should do to be able to see your comments, but I wouldn't be able to see them anyway because I can't see your comments. So I just want to thank you. Thanks for the hearts. I'm seeing the hearts and likes, so that lets me know you're here. I see that there are 13 people watching when I'm looking up on the little eyeball up here. If you have any ideas about this, about what we could do as a community of people to connect on this kind of topic inside corporate structures, I'd love to be part of that dialogue. Dialogue is suspending previous assumptions in order to learn from each other. And I know that there are organizations that are afraid of that. They're afraid to allow people to bring their whole selves to work, because as a leader, maybe that's scary to you. Maybe you don't know what to do in the space of vulnerability. And I totally get that. Yet I believe that the world is pulling us toward intention, the way we've described it here. Activating intention means rejoining your source and becoming a modern day sorcerer. So as I'm kind of wrapping this up here, let me tell you from this book what Wayne says. He says that the problem that happens with people who don't know this about source, they get stuck in their ego. And he said, ego is made of 6 primary ingredients that account for how we experience ourselves as disconnected. And Wayne will say, and maybe you don't agree with this, but those wows, thanks for the wows. Ego, he says, is edging God out. And we don't have to call it God if we don't want to inside a company, but it's a higher awareness of some sort. He says, what happens to us when we get connected with ego is we start to believe I am what I have. My possessions define me. We start to believe I am what I do. My achievements define me. I am what others think of me. My reputation defines me. I am separate from everyone. My body defines me as alone. He says, I am separate from all that it is missing in my life. My life space is disconnected from my desires. And 6th, I am separate from God. My life depends on God's assessment of my worthiness. And he said that's what can happen when we let our egos take over and get out of this power of intention. So there are steps to intention. Maybe we should do a book study about this book. Maybe it would be kind of fun to just dig into this book inside your organization. If you want somebody to help facilitate that, I would love to do that. I am really good at holding space for conversations to emerge. And I tell you, I've told you before, it's this tattoo that I put on my arm 1 year ago. The tattoo is Aisumatak, a person who holds the space for wisdom to emerge. When I put this on my arm last Labor Day, I had no idea this is what was going to happen in my life. And I feel a sense of urgency and a sense of purpose that I haven't felt before. We need to do this, you guys. And whether we do this inside our companies or outside our companies, wouldn't it be awesome if our companies started to understand that it's okay to feel the fear of what is going to happen if somebody says something I don't know how to respond to? Okay, big whoop. You don't know. Well, you've never done it because you've let your ego run you. So what? So let's get beyond that fear. Let's not let that fear stop us. Let's notice the fear and go through it anyway. Because if we notice the fear, yet we have eyes, glasses maybe of love, we see fear for what it is. If we are seeing through the eyes of fear, then we doubt love's presence. We doubt what caring about each other can do. So it's just a shift from seeing the world through fear-based understanding and shifting to see it through love-based understanding. And don't get freaked out about that language. I'm telling you, if we don't start having these conversations, we're going to keep having the same results. Not that there's anything wrong, but couldn't it be better? Couldn't it be even more amazing? if we actually allowed ourselves to get out of that place of fear and scarcity and get a little messy in the conversation. Let's get a little messy in the conversation. Let's have conversations about things that matter. Let's take a look at our structures and our forms that we have. I keep going like this because it's like the structure of things. Let's take a look at the structure. Let's make it amazing and awesome. Let's not forget that you're not done when the structure's built. You need heart and soul and spirit to be infused so that together we can attract that energy, so that our employees first get it, so that our employees can feel appreciated and will then provide that kind of service to our clients. What would happen if your business or all of our businesses actually understood that and helped and supported each other in building strong, engaged, and connected cultures so that people want to come to work, and you build this place where people never want to leave? What would happen if that kind of energy were available inside the corpus, the structure of your corporate gig? Thank you, thank you, thank you. Those hearts and likes are awesome. I'll look at your comments. I apologize for not addressing them here. I just can't see them. I don't have something set right. But I appreciate you guys so much for allowing me this space. I'll go back and listen to this later, because when I get into this space of having these kind of conversations, it just sort of happens. I don't plan it. And I realize that I really have the ability to allow spirit and soul and that love to come through. So thank you for being here. I look forward to being with you next week. And as always, go be awesome. See you next week.